A city does not need to be silent to feel lonely. Sometimes the loudest streets hide the quietest hearts. In the vibrant riverside metropolis of Harborview, where glass towers reflected the sun like scattered diamonds, the Fernandez family lived on the 12th floor of an old brick apartment building on Alder Lane. Their home was not large, but it was filled with color. Bright curtains, hand-painted flower pots on the balcony, and walls covered with drawings, school certificates, and framed photographs from years gone by. The family consisted of Daniel and Sofia Fernandez and their 4 children, Isabella, Mateo, Clara, and little Noah. Completing the household was a golden brown dog named Bruno, whose wagging tail seemed powered by pure joy. Every weekday morning began like a cheerful storm. The alarm would ring at 6, and within minutes the apartment transformed into a whirlwind of motion. Sophia moved swiftly in the kitchen, flipping pancakes while humming an old folk tune her grandmother used to sing. The smell of butter and cinnamon drifted through the rooms, gently pulling everyone from sleep. Daniel, calm and steady, prepared lunch boxes at the dining table. He believed that a good meal was the secret to a good day, so he carefully packed sandwiches, fruit slices, and handwritten notes tucked into each child's napkin. Isabella, the eldest at 14, carried herself with quiet confidence. She braided Clara's hair, reminded Mateo about his science project, and checked Noah's shoelaces twice. Responsibility came naturally to her, though she sometimes wished she could be carefree like her siblings. Mateo, 12 years old and bursting with imagination, could turn even a missing sock into a grand mystery. He narrated dramatic stories while searching under the couch, making everyone laugh despite the rush. His energy was contagious, and even Daniel struggled to hide his smile. Clara, 9, possessed a thoughtful nature beyond her years. She asked endless questions about the sky's color, about how birds knew where to fly, about why rain smelled different in summer. Her curiosity painted the world in bright shades of wonder. Noah, only 5, was the heartbeat of the family. His giggles echoed through the apartment like music. He believed every day held a secret treasure waiting to be found. Weekends were sacred to the Fernandez family. Instead of sleeping late, they treated Saturdays as invitations for adventure. Sometimes they visited street markets filled with handmade crafts and sizzling food stalls. Other times they explored art galleries or attended community concerts in the plaza. On quiet evenings, they transformed their living room into a cinema, dimming the lights and sharing bowls of popcorn while Bruno curled up at their feet. One bright autumn morning, Daniel surprised everyone with an announcement. "Today," he said, unfolding a brochure, "we're going somewhere different." The destination was Cedar Hollow Path, a nature reserve located beyond the city's edge. Unlike crowded parks, this place offered winding trails, wooden bridges, and hills overlooking wide meadows. The children's eyes widened with excitement. Preparations began immediately. Sophia packed homemade wraps, apples, granola bars, and bottles of lemonade. Isabella checked the weather forecast and suggested bringing light jackets. Mateo grabbed binoculars, convinced they would spot rare birds. Clara carried a small notebook to record discoveries. Noah insisted on packing his toy compass, declaring himself the official explorer. Bruno barked enthusiastically as they stepped into the elevator, his tail thumping against the metal walls. The drive out of Harborview felt like entering another world. Tall buildings gradually gave way to open fields and clusters of trees. The air grew fresher, tinged with the scent of earth and leaves. Upon arriving at Cedar Hollow Path, they were greeted by a wooden sign carved with swirling patterns. A narrow trail stretched ahead, disappearing into a forest glowing with amber sunlight. At first, the walk was easy. Fallen leaves crunched under their shoes. Birds flitted between branches, singing melodies that seemed to weave through the air. Daniel led the way, occasionally glancing at the map posted at the entrance. Sophia walked beside him, pointing out unusual mushrooms and twisted tree trunks. Isabella kept close to Noah, reminding him not to wander too far. Mateo darted ahead and back again, reporting imaginary sightings of hidden treasure. Clara paused frequently to sketch leaves in her notebook. After an hour, the path began to climb gently uphill. The trees grew denser, their branches forming a canopy that filtered sunlight into golden fragments. A cool breeze whispered through the forest. Suddenly the wind changed. Clouds gathered without warning, swallowing the blue sky. The temperature dropped, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Daniel checked his watch. "We should head toward the overlook, and then make our way back," he suggested. Before they could turn around, a sharp clap of thunder split the air. Rain fell in heavy sheets, drumming against leaves and soaking the ground within seconds. The children gasped, but Sophia's voice remained steady. "Stay close," she said. They hurried toward a small wooden shelter marked on the map. Mud splashed against their shoes as they navigated slippery roots. Bruno barked nervously, yet stayed by Isabella's side. The rain intensified, blurring the trail. Mateo tried to make light of the situation, striking heroic poses and announcing that he would defeat the storm. Clara laughed despite the water dripping from her hair. Noah squealed with delight each time thunder echoed overhead. When they finally reached the shelter, a simple structure with a slanted roof and wooden benches, they rushed inside, breathless and drenched. For several minutes, they listened to the rain's relentless rhythm. Water cascaded from the roof in shimmering curtains. Lightning illuminated the forest in brief flashes. Isabella wrapped an arm around Noah, who shivered slightly. Sophia handed out jackets from her backpack. Daniel squeezed Mateo's shoulder reassuringly. As quickly as it had arrived, the storm began to fade. The thunder retreated into distant murmurs. Raindrops softened to a gentle patter before stopping altogether. The family stepped outside cautiously. The forest had transformed. Leaves glistened like polished glass. Mist hovered between trees, and the air smelled intensely fresh. Though their clothes were damp and their hair clung to their foreheads, laughter bubbled up uncontrollably. The unexpected storm had turned their simple hike into a memory. Determined not to let the weather ruin their adventure, they continued toward the overlook. The trail, now muddy, tested their balance. Isabella guided Noah carefully over slippery stones. Mateo used a fallen branch as a walking stick, pretending to be an ancient explorer. Clara observed how raindrops collected at the tips of leaves before falling. After another climb, the trees parted. They found themselves standing on a wide platform overlooking a vast valley. The rain clouds drifted away, and sunlight streamed through gaps, painting the landscape in warm gold. Rolling hills stretched into the distance. A river wound through the valley like a silver ribbon. No one spoke at first. The view held them still, reminding them how small their worries were compared to the world's grandeur. Daniel exhaled slowly. "Worth it," he whispered. They shared their lunch there, sitting together as Bruno rested his head on Clara's lap. The food tasted better than usual, seasoned by effort and laughter. On their way back, the trail felt friendlier. Even the mud seemed playful rather than troublesome. Mateo slipped once, landing harmlessly on his backside, which triggered another round of giggles. By the time they returned to the car, the sky was completely clear. A faint rainbow arched across the horizon. The drive home was quieter. Noah dozed against Sophia's shoulder. Clara flipped through her damp notebook proudly. Isabella stared out the window, thoughtful but smiling. Back in their apartment, they hung wet clothes over chairs and brewed hot cocoa. The warmth spread through them, easing tired muscles. That night, as they gathered for dinner, Daniel raised his glass of water. "To storms," he said. "To storms," Mateo repeated, confused. "Yes," Sophia added gently, "because they remind us that we can face anything together." Isabella looked at her siblings, their flushed cheeks, their shining eyes, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. Responsibility no longer felt heavy. It felt meaningful. Clara announced she would write an essay about the storm. Mateo declared it the best adventure ever. Noah insisted he had guided them safely with his toy compass. Bruno barked in agreement. Days passed, and life returned to its usual rhythm of school assignments and office meetings. Yet something subtle had shifted. The memory of Cedar Hollow Path lingered like sunlight after rain. When challenges arose, missed buses, difficult exams, long workdays, the Fernandez family carried the lesson of that storm within them. They knew discomfort could pass. They knew muddy shoes could still walk forward. One evening weeks later, Isabella found herself overwhelmed by a school project. Frustration threatened to bring tears. Before she could retreat to her room, Mateo appeared with exaggerated detective commentary about her mysterious sadness. Clara offered colored pens for her presentation. Noah handed her a crumpled drawing of a rainbow. Isabella laughed, realizing she was not alone. The city outside remained busy and loud, but inside the apartment on Alder Lane, warmth thrived. Years from now, the details of that day might blur. The exact path they took, the number of sandwiches packed, the precise time the storm began, but the feeling would endure. They would remember the thunder that startled them and the shelter that protected them. They would remember muddy shoes and golden sunlight spilling across the valley. Most of all, they would remember standing side by side, discovering that unity turns even sudden storms into stories worth telling. And in a world constantly shifting like clouds above a forest trail, the Fernandez family understood a simple truth. Home is not defined by walls or streets, but by the hands that hold yours when the rain begins to fall.